Hello everyone, welcome back to another video from Vulnerable Minds. I hope that you're doing okay whenever you see this, and even if you're not, I hope that you get some space to be with it and that maybe this video is a little bit helpful to you. So today's video is actually really special for me because I love reading. I have been a reader all my life, and the intersection of mental health with reading is something that I do think about a lot, because reading definitely impacts my mood, at least, if not my mental state at large, but there is definitely some relation between what I'm reading and how I'm feeling on that day. I experience post-reading blues, like after finishing a really good book, there's that feeling of fullness and emptiness inside, and it's just a whole journey. And I was thinking about it. I also love watching videos on booktube, which is basically watching a lot of book related content, and I was really thinking about the kind of books that one might reach out to if you need some comfort. I think we've all heard about comfort shows or comfort movies, just visual media that we reach out to when we're in need for something very comforting, when we want something to feel like a hug or like being under a blanket. And on the same lines, I was thinking about the kind of books that maybe we can reach out to or read when we're needing that comfort, but maybe we don't want to engage with visual media. Or maybe you're a reader like me who loves getting that comfort from books. So today's video is all about various books that you can read if you're looking for some comfort. Now, of course, this might not be applicable to everyone. The books that I'm recommending may not be your kind of books, but I think the idea behind this video is to just give you a starting point. You can maybe see the kind of books that could be comforting, or you could start with one of them and see if they work for you, and maybe that can help you figure out the kind of books that might be comforting for you. So without any further ado, let's start talking about all the books that we have on this list. So the very first book that I have is one that I myself read during a very difficult time in my life, when I was alone, I was away from family, I was figuring things out, my mental and physical health were not in a very good place. And honestly, I was grocery shopping one day and I saw this book. I had read books by the author before, and on the book it literally says this book is like a giant hug, and in that moment that is all I needed. Everything about this book called out to me because I just wanted comfort in that moment. And that book is The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. So yeah, as the name suggested, and it said that this felt like a giant hug, all I was looking for. And honestly, bang on, like that was absolutely true. This book, it's very interesting because it has like it's not necessarily like a non-fiction or a fiction. It just has random things written, but by random I mean that these aren't necessarily even life lessons. These are just maybe his musings, his thoughts, some things that have brought the author comfort himself in his journey with depression and his own mental illnesses. And somehow reading this book, I felt like I was being seen, because there is no romanticization of that struggle. It's not that, oh my god, your struggle is what's gonna build you. That is true, but there is acknowledgement that it can suck, but at the same time there might be hope. And it's very easy to go through because you don't really have to read a story or even non-fiction. It's not very self-helpy in that way, and it's honestly a very comforting read. Like, the title of the book is absolutely correct, and I thought this would be the best book to start off this video with. Now, the second book that I have is actually a book series, and it's a very popular graphic novel series, which is the Heartstopper series. Now, I love this series. It is such good queer romance. It's very light-hearted, even though it is touching upon some important issues. This book is full of joy, and queer joy at that, which we need in this world. and it's really easy to go through because it's a graphic novel. It's very fun, it's very well done, it's really easy to read. You know, it's not very heavy, you don't have to think too much. You can just, honestly, you can read the entire series in a day. It's, if you have that kind of time, it's that palatable, and it's just so comforting. You see some great relationships, great characters, there is relatability, but there is also hope and this feeling of being loved and cared for. And I think I really value that in this series, and it makes for a very comforting read. The next book is A Full Circle by Namrata Bachchan. Now, this book is an illustrated book. It honestly is more of a poem which is being spoken throughout the book, and it's very short. It's like a 10-minute read, honestly, but it is so beautiful. First of all, the illustrations are gorgeous. Just looking at the illustrations is so nice, so peaceful, and the poem is really beautiful. It is very lyrical, very simple, but somehow profound, and there's something so comforting about having a very poetic sort of pattern going on with these gorgeous illustrations. And when I read it, I found it really comforting. This is something you can read over and over again because it's just so small. It's really easy to go through, but also really beautiful and fills you with that sense of joy almost. So yeah, I think this definitely makes for a very comforting read. Now, the next book is for all fantasy lovers. So like me, if you guys love fantasy, but also realize that sometimes fantasy is too fast-paced, there's always high stakes, a very comforting read, and a very popular one at that, is Legends and Lattes. So this is a high fantasy novel, but with very low stakes. So the main character is an orc. Most of the characters in this are some sort of mythical, fantastical beings, but the plot is extremely simple. The protagonist is trying to set up a coffee shop. So for all coffee lovers, food lovers, and fantasy lovers, this is the perfect mix because nothing much is happening. It's almost slice of life. Like, there are very small challenges, but you know, the main character and the other characters are overcoming it, kind of like how we do in our daily lives. And there's a lot of friendship and found family tropes, you know, when you are going through big life changes, but you come across the right people and it makes you feel a bit more at home. And it is very comforting to read. And if you like coffee, if you like food, the food related writing in this is really nice. It'll make you hungry probably, but it became a very comforting read because it helped in engaging with that very fantastical sort of element, which can be a great separation from real life. You know, you're very obviously in a world that is not the current world, which can be a great form of escape, but at the same time your heart is not constantly racing because of what's gonna happen next, and it's very slow and calming that way. So yeah, definitely a very comforting read. Now, the next book is one of my favorite books of all time. Also fantasy, but not very high fantasy, but so comforting and so popular and so wholesome, which is The House in the Cerulean Sea. This book is so beautiful. It also has very found family tropes. You see this main character changing over the course of time with interaction with these kids who are magical. They are magical, and it is just beautiful. There is also queer romance in this and just a lot of joy. There's a lot of seaside imagery, and I am someone who really loves water bodies, who really loves the beach. And I think if you are like that, this imagery would also work really well for you. But overall, there is a lot of fun in this because there are a lot of kids who are the main characters in the book, and so there's a lot of mischief happening, a lot of fun, but at the same time a lot of learning, a lot of change. And I read this book over the pandemic, over the lockdown, and it was all I needed because it was just so comforting. This book makes you cry, but in the best possible way, because you're crying out of joy almost. There is so much hope, you know, It's like the perfect happy ending because it doesn't feel impossible. You can see the growth and the change in it, and that can also be really comforting sometimes. So highly recommend. Now, the next book that I have is a non-fiction book of sorts, and that is the Calm book. So Calm is a meditation app. It's really nice, it's very beautiful, and this book is honestly, first of all, it's really gorgeous. It has like a lot of pictures and very pretty imagery. It has a lot of prompts, things to think about. It is divided into various sections which are on like nature, work, sleep, creativity, children. So basically aspects from our lives, and it deals with all of that. It asks you about things you're grateful for. It gives you some techniques that you might use if you're feeling a certain way or if you need some help in that particular aspect of life. So it's very easy to navigate. It's very pleasing to look at because of the kind of pictures that there are. Like there is a lot of water imagery, food imagery, like really pretty pictures like this. And this is also not something that you need to read cover to cover. You can refer to it as and when you're experiencing something in areas of life that you might want some help in, or just some food for thought. And it is truly very calming to go through this book. So for the next recommendation, I actually have an entire category of books, which is children's picture books. And we might as adults feel that children's picture books are juvenile, but honestly there are some fantastic picture books out there which speak about really difficult things but so simply and so beautifully, because obviously, right, they're meant for children, so they have to be made easier to digest for that age group, but at the same time not lose the complexity, not lose the nuance, and also be engaging and interesting. There are many children's picture books that are really nice. My favorite one, or one of my favorites, is How to Be a Lion, and this is so beautiful because it speaks about how there is no one way to live life. And if you are in a funk, if you feel like, you know, there is something wrong with you in that sense, in how you're doing life or how you're living or how you're relating to the identity that you were born in, it can be really helpful, really comforting. And there are many other good ones. Another really good one is Ruby's Worry, which is a lot about anxiety. You can really find good picture books based on the topics that you want to engage with, and because they're so simple to go through and honestly so pretty, I think they can be really comforting. And if you get the right topic, one that is resonating with you or your distress in that moment, it can be a very simple, non-threatening, calming way to soothe yourself, to get some insights into your experience, and to also bring some comfort. Another category of books that I find very comforting is poetry. Now, I do understand that poetry is not for anyone, and there are also various kinds of poetry. Some might be really dense and wouldn't be as comforting. Some can really hit home and be extremely comforting to read. So this is one that I don't think there are any specific recommendations for, but might require some experimentation on your end. And there are also various ways to engage with poetry books. So you can read authors like Rilke or Rumi if you're into Sufism, very beautiful poetry. There are also a lot of spoken word poetry portals where you can see artists perform their poems, and that is also really comforting if you're more into that and not reading poetry. But sometimes finding the right poem or just the right verse or line can be so comforting. Finally, my last set of recommendations is to reread books. It's always so comforting to go back to familiar imagery, familiar characters. If there was a book that you really liked as a child, or your favorite reads from maybe a year ago or a few years ago, books that you think about on and off but you haven't really read in a while, all of these can make for such comforting reads. Like sometimes going into that universe that you loved and just existing there for a while can be really comforting. Rereading books can have a very calming effect on you, also because especially if you're someone who experiences a lot of anxiety, rereading can be very soothing because you already know what's sort of going to happen. You know what to expect, and when you already know what to expect, you're looking forward to it more. You're engaging with the book differently. Maybe you'll notice some things that you hadn't in the first read. And I really always recommend rereading books because you always get something more out of it, and being in that universe for a little bit longer can be very helpful. So these were all my recommendations, and that is it for this video. I truly hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you got some ideas about what kind of books might be comforting for you. I do really recommend and love all the books that I've mentioned in this video. I really hope that all of these books bring you as much comfort and joy as they have brought me. And I hope to see you around next time. Bye.